All right, good morning, good afternoon, hello world. How are we all doing this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are? Welcome to another Avid Live Sound webinar. This morning we are going to focus on an installation, a nightclub installation in New York, and I'm going to invite in my new friend, my brand new friend, Danielle De Palma. She is the house engineer and technical director at the facility, and she's going to run us through what they all do there and tell us everything good about venue and S6L there. So, Danielle, good morning. I know it's we're just a little bit afternoon for you, right? We're 1 o'clock for you.
Yeah, you know what? In club world, it is still morning. That works out well. Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
stated. Well stated. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot about you today. So let's see. Where do we want to kick it off here? I mean, why don't you give us a? I guess let's start by telling us a little bit about the Bowery, right? I mean, tell us how long it's been around. Give us a little bit of the history of the place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was started by Michael Sweer back in our opening date, I believe, was early 1998.
Yeah, sounds right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and in previous iterations of the building, it was an old shoe store, it was an old theater, and yeah, we took it over, opened in 1998. With at the time let me get this right, I believe it was the Yamaha PM 3000 and an EAW rig, a bunch of 650 and 750 boxes.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right for the time. Sure, sure.
Uh,
So, what's the? Tell us about the capacity of your place. What is it? I'm going to guess it's just looking at pictures of it. It's probably about 500, 600 seats. Is that right?
yep, right in between. We sell to about 575 tickets.
And is that? I mean, is it all? How? What's the? Let's take a look here. I got some pictures of the place. We might as well bring them up here. So obviously you have a balcony there. So do you guys do primarily standing room shows, or are there seated shows, et cetera, there?
We have tried the seated shows. Yeah, we do have seats in house, but I think what we are most known for is that standing room only, very intimate experience at that capacity. And the balcony does let us get away with adding a few more
Yeah.
people into the room. And the balcony is one of the most sought after places, I think, to see the show.
Yeah.
It's a lot of friends and family up there. It's great sight lines no matter where you go, but the balcony was something that we kind of carried over. At the time, the designers then went on to the Music Hall of Williamsburg in that similar style.
Right, right. Well, it's a beautiful looking venue. I mean, it would be great to go in there and do some shows. Boy, it would be a lot of fun to work in a space that size, you know? So
Very
let me ask the obvious question. You know, we're obviously in the pandemic world now. You guys are back to work, obviously. How many shows are you averaging a week in there? You guys doing a number of shows in there now?
Yeah, when we came back, it was turning the faucet full on. It went from, what was the analogy somebody used, like from a garden hose to a fire hose, right?
Right.
Was the great one, and we sort of always knew that, getting back to it, which is why we were so intentional with when and how we reopened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, again, going into the busy season, and in the club world, we coined the phrase Rocktober. We're booked about 6 nights a week on average.
Well, congratulations for that. I mean, good grief. Congrats on getting back to
Yep.
work. I think that's where we all want to be, right?
Yes, it's so good to be back.
All right, so let's talk about. We'll just touch on this briefly because I really want to stay focused on you today. But I think it's worth noting you guys have a sister venue. Is that right? In on the West Coast?
Yeah, exactly that. So we hit the market with a couple of tiers of showcase spaces, and the sister venue, the Teragram Ballroom, is our LA counterpart of a similar capacity. Although I think now they just increased their capacity by decreasing their front of house footprint a little bit.
Yeah. Is that the front of house footprint we see in the picture there? That kind of square area there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. I am a little jealous that you get to be on the floor in front of the PA, which I've always envied.
Yeah, which is we'll talk about that coming up here. But you're in the balcony there, right? You guys are set up in the balcony there, which you can see right behind you there, right?
We are, yep. Yeah, here
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
in our little dugout.
yeah. That presents its own challenges, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, let's talk about you a little bit. Let's get people up to speed on your role there. How long have you been working with the Bowery?
I really kind of came up through the ranks, teching shows here back in, I want to say 2012, 2013, and working my way up, starting as a stagehand and getting to learn the ropes that way. And then moving on to the audio positions,
Mm-hmm.
even throwing my hand in on once or twice in the lighting world. Ultimately, though, I loved the road. I loved the idea of working for an artist, and seeing a show grow, seeing a consistent show grow, start to finish. So I
Yeah,
left
yeah.
to do some touring work, um, and then the offer came up in 2016, so not that long ago, to come on as production manager. And
Great.
I jumped at the chance. I remember that. I remember going into the meeting, not knowing what to expect, knowing that it was Bowery, and feeling it so near and dear to my heart, in a place where I can make some really nice, lasting change.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I mean, you work at a place that long, you get some emotional attachment to it, and kind of really take ownership of it. People like that in those venues are gold. I mean, you're a golden person there to be able to do that. So it's great. So are you still doing any mixing? How much mixing are you doing there a week?
I would say if we have 6 shows a week, right, with the headliner, probably 1 to 2 nights a week on a good day,
Yeah,
and a
good.
lot of support. Um, but a lot of it is system teching, and a lot of it is kind of helping other guest engineers
Hmm.
along,
Great.
which I truthfully equally enjoy. So it's nice
Awesome.
to be somebody else's ears on a project.
Yeah, yeah. To me, that's got to be one of the great things about working in a facility like that is you're going to hear every mixing approach, every style of music, everything that goes on. I kind of, in some ways, I kind of miss those days, those very early days of that. It was always fascinating to see what everybody else's approach was going to be to doing something. So you can learn a lot that way, that's for sure.
That's exactly right.
All right, so obviously we're here to talk about S6L today, but I always think it's important to talk about where you came from, right? With because obviously you guys replaced your analog consoles, and again, not that I want to dwell on this, but you guys worked together with the Teragram Ballroom to kind of come up with the same plan for both places, right? You both have the same console in those venues, is that right?
That was it. And that was important. It was important that we did it together and put our brains together and came up with something that made sense for both rooms, and would be, really effective and be a great, step into this next generation of
Yeah,
live.
yeah. So you guys, I know you had mentioned to me that you had H3000, a Midas H3000 in your venue. Was it the same in the Tarragon Ballroom?
It was. Our owner loved it so
So you
dearly.
both had H3000?
Yep, yeah.
And I mean, I can kind of see that at Tarragon, but having an H3000 up in that balcony, it kind of begs the question, did you ever let anybody bring in their own consoles?
Never, I will, yes. Once, where we had to build scaffolding over the desk and then lift their console up and over ours. And that was a very long day and a special occasion. But usually it did mean that, unfortunately, guest consoles did have to go off sides
Yeah.
of center of the room.
That sounds like something I would do. I would ask you to do if I came in there, Danielle.
Yeah, hey, it was fun. It was nice to see it, that it could be done for sure.
So tell me, I mean, obviously we live in the world of digital consoles now, but was there a particular motivation that got you to move to digital? Not just necessarily S6L, but where you just thought, okay, we got to go to digital here and kind of get in the game, so to speak, of the modern era. Is that what drove you there?
Modern era, I think so. Yeah, I think in my particular case, it was keeping up with analog and how much maintenance it required to where I couldn't effectively manage it in the way that I
Yeah,
wanted to. And then talking with other engineers, and having shows come in without a desk and them saying, I love analog, I love this desk, I love all of the outboard that you have, but I can't process, my inputs the way that I
yeah,
want
yeah,
on analog. And that's a valid claim.
yeah.
I had to
I'll tell you, it's so hard to not be romantic about analog. I mean, especially for those of us that have been around it for a long time, it's very, very easy to forget all of the downsides to analog that were in play. All that maintenance, all the noise, the ground loops, all those kind of things. Those kind of things just filter away, and you just easily forget those and have these romantic notions about it. But and digital kind of solves all of those problems. So yeah, I feel you there. I feel you there, and especially for a club, where something is going to be sitting and operating every single day, man. Over a period of time, that's got to become a maintenance liability, right?
that's it. And it, knock on wood, and the desk is still going strong. Everything that needed to be done with it, I was able to keep done in a way, that still allowed it to function and work as it's
Yeah.
supposed to. But yes, a lot of chasing your tail, a lot of, like, once you get to fader 48, you start back on fader 1, and you just keep the process going.
All right, so let's go down the path of how you came to Venue and how you came to S6L. Uh, I mean, were there, particular kind of evangelists that were saying to you, "Hey, you really need to check out this console"? Did you have experience in the past with, maybe Profile or SC48 that kind of piqued your interest? Obviously you worked with the Teragram and team to be able to kind of come up. How did you guys end up landing on S6L?
On it, yeah, it was. I really wanted to remain open, right? So the world was ours. I took input from everyone, and we really could have gone anywhere with it. At at Teragram, they had a Midas digital at monitors, so they were Midas through and through.
Mm-hmm.
It really, we had to check certain boxes, right? It had to, most important, sound as good or better than the Midas, and that was something that us in LA felt really strongly about. It had to have a proven track record of sounding great.
So that
Uh,
was kind of your main gating feature, was that, hey, if it doesn't sound as good as what we got, we're not going to go there, right? Is that right?
that was it. First and foremost, absolutely. We, have numerous accolades about how great the room sounds, how much of a joy it is to mix here, and we only wanted to emphasize that. We didn't want anything that would then we would have to fight to get back to sounding to a good place.
Yeah, yeah. How important was kind of rider friendliness? Where you had to, kind of had to meet rider demand or be acceptable to riders. Was that an important piece of your formula?
Huge, yeah. That one, I would say, just underneath it sounding good.
Yeah,
It's, again, we're seeing a lot of that where we being around as long as we have, our capacity, artists loving to do more intimate shows. We see everything from a showcase at 600 cap to huge underplays that really want to come back and do a club again.
yeah, yeah.
So it had to check all those boxes
Yeah,
with all
that's a
the
pretty wide range of rider demand there. I can sympathize with you there. That's great.
yeah.
So how many? I think we might have touched on this, but I just want to retouch this. So how many shows that you have come in have their own mixer, are using, their own front of house engineer. What is it? 3 out of
Their own
5, 6 out of
engineer.
10?
I would safely say 6 to 7 out of 10 shows.
Yeah, yeah,
Of those, probably another half, so another 3 out of 10 have their own consoles.
yeah.
And again, we'll see what happens post COVID. I've already started to see that tours are leaning more on house production
Yeah.
at our level, because the vendors just don't have it,
And to save
or the bigger
cost.
stores have it, and then that's it. And they need to consolidate personnel. They need to consolidate gear. They need to figure out a way to tour during COVID in a
Yeah.
way that makes sense.
I mean, not to go down the rabbit hole here with it because we won't have time to do it, but I think the post-pandemic world in concert production is going to see a lot of consolidation like that. You're going to see that for over a period of time, and then if we get used to that, it's going to stay that way for a while. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Right.
All right, let's move on to some of the other boxes that you might have needed to tick. I'll go back to the screen share here because that's going to take us to our next one, I think, which is that you guys use a lot of analog gear, right?
I love it. Yes, that was a big point as well. That whatever desk we had played really nicely with the pieces of outboard that we still wanted to keep. This idea that you could have a little bit of the studio world
Sure.
in live sound, and really get to turn some physical potentiometers, right, some physical knobs, and see the changes that they made.
So are you guys handling this just in terms of interface? Are you interfacing right to the back of the desk, or are you using external I/O to do inserts, etc.?
We chose back of the desk for
Yeah.
this one, and that was at our house. And I'm not positive about Teragram, but at our house, the stage box has to live at front of house as well.
Right. Right. Okay. Cool. Well, how about recording? Are you guys multi-track recording on a nightly basis there, or do you offer it up as a service to your incoming people?
Now we are, and we're seeing a big uptick of it. Yeah. Again, going back to not only with digital audio, but another way we grew to be able to reopen after and during the pandemic is with live streaming.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a huge uptick in folks recording not only the audio but the video for any content going forward, and it has been such a joy to truly be so plug and play with Pro Tools, and just to be able to offer that to somebody at such high resolution.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing to me even today. I mean, I get blinded by a little bit because I work for Avid so closely at times, but I'm just surprised how many people don't realize how easy that is to do with Venue. I mean, it's just so simple to pull it off now and have it be really high quality.
And then
So,
in this particular house, what's been really nice is just the virtual sound check. Is
of course, yeah.
listening back and then going through the desk and having people get more comfortable with audio coming down channels. So that's been really nice as well.
So when did you guys make your decision and get your install done? Can you give me some sense of time there? I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Was Venue 7, was that release part of, was that in play when you guys made your decision?
That is an excellent question. I don't believe it was. I think that was something that when we made the decision and started going to vendors for quotes and service and things, that was right around the time that we saw and started digging into the world of Venue 7 a bit.
The reason I ask, I was just wondering how important some of those features might have been to you. Things like bus to bus, all the bus to bus options. The mix minus capability, the 2-track recording and playback, the automatic delay compensation. Did any of those things play into your decision making?
I have to say truthfully no, but now that we have them, it's such a joy. So it really is sort of the icing on the cake at that point of gosh, just this huge sigh of relief of like, oh, this is so much easier. This is
Yeah.
exactly, where I used to have so many different workflows, right, in previous versions of Venue to kind of get what I wanted to or how I wanted to achieve something. It was just like, oh, now there's a button that just does it,
Yeah,
now.
I'm right there with you. I mean, after I've been on 7 for a while now, it's just like, how did we ever mix on this before I had 7? I mean, you fall so in love with it so quickly.
That was
Oh,
totally my experience. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your infrastructure there. We can actually start with something you mentioned previously there, which is you have your stage rack sitting at front of house, right? So that tells me that you have some analog, infrastructure there. You've basically just taken a digital console and turned it into a drop-in replacement for an analog console. Is that right?
For all intents and purposes, yeah. Our analog split uh, ran through the balcony.
Yeah.
And that was something where kind of taking out that infrastructure somehow seemed a little more daunting than taking out a 500-pound desk. Um, but we did, while we pulled out all of the cabling for the inserts and a lot of the outboard and things like that, and all of the TT patch bays, we kept just the straight split between monitors in front of house. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we dropped the stage box right in. The other point was that the drive lines come up to front of house as well. And again, just getting those from a very much plug and play, even though we did transition from analog to AES, we ended up, still doing the same thing, still dropping that
Right.
right.
Right. Yeah, that had to make things much easier just for the drop-in, for sure, I would think. So tell us a little bit about your PA configuration. You can talk a little bit about your PA. Tell us what you got in there. Tell us, how many zones you got, what you're driving. I mean, obviously it's a small place, but I'm betting you still got some, some good drive system going on there.
We got some fun stuff. Yeah, it stemmed from again our old EAW rig back in the day, which was designed with such a large center cluster to really fill the majority of the room with kind of, with a little less going on in the left and right than you might think. And our owner thought that, that was a really important foundation to the sound and why the club sounds so good. So when we switched over to D&B, which was done before I came on as PM, about a year before, they kept a similar configuration, just kind of driven a little differently. So
Mm-hmm.
we have 5 zones altogether, a left, right, center, front fills, and then the subs.
Nice. Okay. And do you? I mean, on a given day, do you kind of mandate how people drive that, or is it kind of an open architecture where people can kind of drive the system any way they want to drive it in terms of what signals go where?
Open architecture, and I think that one was really important for me coming on, as PM, and one of the reasons I came on was to make sure that the room still sounds as good. After the
Yeah.
D install happened, there was some hesitancy over how to treat the PA and make sure it sounds as good. And one of the things that was really important to me is that flexibility of how to drive it depending on the artist. If you have a very loud band on our stage, and again, we're small and we're not very deep, that center fill really does come in handy to, if you wanted to drive that separately and feed just a little more vocal into the
Yeah.
center, that really just kind of makes it pop a little more.
Well, kind of speaking of that, I know I'd ask you pre-webinar if you could set up a screen share where we might look at your drive from the console. Were you able to accomplish that? Can we have a look at it?
Yeah, let's take a peek here.
Awesome. Let's do that.
Show
So,
you.
oh, there we go. So what kind of outputs are you using to drive the PA? Are you using matrices or just the primary left and right outputs,
Matrix output. And so,
auxiliaries?
let me just show you that here. And the matrix mixer of Venue 7 is probably my favorite thing, right? And being able to really assign whatever you want to it. Ultimately, yes, the matrix outputs are then what feed the amps to the PA. So in most times, and how I like to start my mixes is that most everything just gets a mix of the left right, either individually or a sum of the left right.
Yeah. And then are
So
you? The screen is a little too far away for me to see it. I hope the audience can see it. What are your sources? Can you want to just go through your sources there for that particular matrix? That's for the center fill, right?
yeah, exactly that, and you can yeah talk you through that a little bit.
I see the left, right.
The left and right, yep, summed at 0 because the DMB takes care of processing for the center there. iPod always, and that's a fun little club trick. Less so for the center, but for the feed to the downstairs bar or
Uh-huh.
satellite sources. And then we have all of the groups. So I like to work in group mixing, and I have all of our outboard coming up to the groups as fader inserts. And that's a way, again, to kind of get, let's say the center needs a little more vocal and the vocals are on this group, I'll just inch that in a little bit more. Beyond that, we have, what did I do? A couple of my go-to effects. I am a little guilty of being effects heavy and a little more so, in this room, I feel like listening on cans versus what's actually happening in the room. I feel like the effects are a little more present when you're not in a space. And so having the effects on as a mix minus, and that's for again, any satellite mix, any broadcast or anything like that, kind of dry up the vocals or dry up the band a little bit more.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. And then beyond that, it is all the guest stuff, which I kind of always have in there as a fail safe. So whenever we get a guest console coming in, and let me see if I can show you that here, if you're able to kind of see that. But they go in, and let's see if this side for you here. Yeah, there you go. If you can kind of make that out, they come in and they hit what's called input direct, right? So they're bypassing any of the processing that would normally happen on a channel.
Awesome stuff. So, obviously you're taking advantage of the delay compensation that's now on Venue 7, using the matrices that way for the mix minuses. That's really great. It's kind of a neat way to do it. So you're obviously feeding more zones than just the PA zones as well. Then you're feeding dressing rooms and lobbies and other things like that, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, I can show you that there on the outputs. But it is, gosh, what do we have total? Yeah, it's definitely the downstairs bar and the upstairs dressing room, because that is above the stage. You can't really hear what's going on there at all. Again, another record out if you need it, and that's just to do something different from the left right if somebody wanted to switch that up, and that goes right to the 2-track recording. And then broadcast mixes for any of the live streaming.
Yeah, that's what that was the next place I was going to go. Are you facilitating any kind of processed mix to be able to take up to stream? Are you paying attention to LUFS levels, anything like that on the console at this point?
Exactly that. And again, in very early stages of it, it's something where I would love to grow with it and have somebody down in a remote location, also checking my work, because that's the really tough part, is to mix for front of house and also be cognizant of what's going on in the broadcast mix.
Absolutely, it is. We're all finding it out the hard way. So
Yes.
yeah, no, there's a lot of discussion right now going on about the different ways to stream. Matter of fact, tonight at 6:30, I'm doing another webinar on all these kind of different streaming architectures to be able to use from other sources. So I guess it also begs the question here: if you're doing all of this, are there times when you're doing front of house and monitors from the balcony location? I mean, if you have a smaller show, does it require that your monitor console be online, or do you guys just take care of it from front of house?
I'd like to get us to a place where we take care of it from front of house, and we're certainly set up to. And that's what's really nice. And again, gosh, all of the auxiliary outputs are really saving the day here. So really on any given day, I am just using auxes 1 through 8, and those are my effect sends. If again we're doing different drive for the PA, auxes 9 and 10 then become my fills and my sub sends, and it depends on auxes that way. Auxes 11 through 24 really don't get much love right now, and then I start the monitor mixes on aux 25. And again, that's in the system processing as well, right? And how they treat that, and how snapshots treat the different auxes. And yeah, they're set up pre-fade, and they're set up to drive our monitoring system analog rather than the digital that our monitor desk does.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, it sounds like you got all the bases covered.
It's so nice to have a redundant system, though, right? I mean, gosh, before that, it was like pulling teeth if you tried to make the Midas, come up with a monitor mix, and there wasn't such a thing as double busing your channels so you could process them differently for monitors. It became a little tricky. So this is nice for having some fail safes, for getting a little creative, and gosh, for being able to mix in ears. That's something that you'll see a lot. That we'll get guest front of house engineers, and our guys will do the band's wedges, but the guest front of house engineer will do the ears. And
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to be honest. That's the first time I've heard of somebody doing that, but that's a really interesting concept there.
Yep. It is kind of, I think, something that we're starting to see a little more of, and again, having this desk, especially if they're using the house desk, which a couple of them have been now, it makes it much easier.
Well, I'm going to have to address that in an upcoming webinar, it sounds like, so that'll be fun. Given the time and space we're in this point in history, Danielle, I got to ask you: are you guys bantering around the idea of going, maybe expanding your PA system to do immersive or surround in your venue?
That would be my dream, truly. I remember seeing a show in New York with a D&B immersive system, and it really took things to a whole new level.
Yeah. Well, especially in a venue your size, I mean, it's so well suited to it because you have the least amount of propagation challenges there, et cetera. So it's really great. And the thing I love about the way immersion is coming online in live sound is that you can take your existing PA structure and just use it as the bed mix, and then just add the immersion. And just use your existing PA drive as objects into the DSP processor and immersify it. It's just fantastic. It's so easy to do now.
Right. That part has been truly mind blowing, and I would love to mix more shows in that way.
Well, I'm just going to bet, because I've come to know you a little bit now. We're going to be back on another webinar here in a little while talking about the immersive install at the Bowery and the Teragram Ballroom. Or Teragram Ballroom. So, well, Danielle, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here.
I cannot thank you enough for having me. Yeah, and really with all of Avid's support through this whole thing, that was a big contingent for us, right? Is having the support, is me fumbling into the world of digital after mixing analog for so long, and y'all have been truly great about it. So
Well,
thank
I'm
you.
going to stop by and see you in person next time I'm in New York. So, get ready. We're going
Yes.
out for coffee. We're going to have some lunch, and we're going to talk SXL and other things. Why not? All right. So I guess we're going to get to a Q&A portion of the presentation here. Let's see if anybody's got any questions in the background.
Hey guys,
So,
how are you?
hey, good. Chant, nice
Popping
to
in
see you.
here.
Thanks for bopping in. So Chant's been capturing questions in the background by the viewers and stuff. So we'll see what he's got for us.
So there's a few here. So far everything's been awesome, guys. How big is the crew at the clubs?
Ooh, good question. On a normal show call, it is myself acting as production manager and front of house engineer. We have a lighting designer, a monitor engineer, and a stage manager.
And is it the same for both clubs?
It is, yeah. That grows if, again, it's an underplay and we need to hire additional loaders or staff and things like that. But that's the core for.
The core crew. Cool.
Great.
Let's see, another one here. Do you use a laptop or tablet to control the console remotely from the floor? And if so, what do you use for setup for that?
Yes. And you know what? I don't know if I have it with me, but I do just use a little iPad. So both, right? I actually mostly use the iPad as the function pad with Venue. But yeah, what I will say, what I do most often is just play some stuff, get it to a good spot, and then just walk the floor. And what I'm used to doing is actually using the tablet that controls our PA processing, right? The DMB, the R1. And there are certain EQ and level adjustments that I can do within that. That, again, from the days of analog, I was used to picking that up and doing that. So old dog, new tricks, as they say. But the function pad of Venue with the iPad app has been really nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't even ask you about that, and I meant to do it. It's right on my list here and completely forgot. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I love the Function Pad app. I think it's just the greatest thing we've come up with Venue in a long time.
There was another question here that they had, and they weren't clear on how you were describing it. So it says the reverb effects are not sent to the left, right. So you can send them to dry, send it dry to record. If so, does it become too dry? Is that the way you've got it set up? You were mentioning how you make the room a little bit wetter, but you keep them on a mix minus, so you can send a drier mix to other devices and rooms.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best to explain it, and you let me know if I'm on the right track with what they're asking. But no, the reverb does go out to the left, right. The reverb, any delay effects that I do, really any effects are going through the master bus. Where I do dry it up then is using the mix minus function, right? Is using the effect returns, which I think is what you saw up there. So the stereo effects returns from the reverb, that comes down the matrix as well as the left and right. And so that I flip the phase of the effect return and then send that at, a level -3, -6, something like that. And that is ultimately what dries up the feed.
Yeah. Maybe I can try to help you out a little bit there, or help the question asker out a little bit there. If she has the effects in the left-right bus, and then adds a version of the left-right or of the effects return to the matrix out of phase, if they're at exactly the same level in both places, there'll be complete cancellation. But as you move one down or up, if you move that effects return down or up within the matrix, you'll be adding more or less effects to that dry send, right? So I think it's a beautiful way to do it, Danielle. That's a really clever thing to do there. It's really good.
Very cool. Very cool. And I did the commissioning at the Teragram, and I can't remember this, and I wasn't clear. Are there monitor consoles there? When I was there, it was kind of torn up. We only focused on the front of house. Do you have monitor consoles at both locations?
Both locations, yeah.
Right. And they're both SXLs?
No, I those we ended up keeping
Okay.
from the previous install. So Teragram, I believe, has a Pro 2 or 3, a Midas Digital, and we have a Digico SD12.
Okay. Cool.
So
Yeah, I just wasn't clear on that. That's all good. And
yep.
then you guys do have a lot of analog gear as well as the Teragram. Are you guys using it as much as you expected to now with SXL?
Good question. I am, and I still love it. Yes, I'm a big fan of group mixing, and I love just again from the old analog days, knowing where my groups are and what's going to them. It has been a little bit of teeth pulling to get guest engineers to use it. You know, you show them and it's all lit up and it looks great. And it's like, look, it's nice and easy. It's just on the group. Just touch the hardware insert button. And, you know, they're still a little hesitant, but I enjoy it. And that's my little moment of zen there.
But you can quickly bypass it so they don't have to use it easily, on the groups, right? The hardware insert button. That's cool.
That's so nice. Yeah.
So it's there if they want to use it. Speaking of that, guest engineers, how receptive have they been to using SXLs?
Much more than the Heritage, I have to say. It's yeah, you always felt a little bit of the trepidation when they came on to the analog desk, and it was a lot of encouraging and a lot of but babysitting as well. And now with these desks, and something that another thing I really pride myself on doing is that our tech pack is interactive in the same way that all of your literature is, but you can actually click like, here's some downloads, and I have our house start file on a clickable link for anyone to download, so they can start building offline and understand how our consoles put together. So I think that really encourages a lot of people. Having resources and support links directly in our tech pack encourages a lot of people, and generally, yeah, the response has been really receptive.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we have for the day.
All right. All right. Well, again, Danielle, thank you very much for your time today, and thanks for sharing all this great info with us. I think you got a great thing going on there. I can't wait to come and see it and hear it. So,
so happy to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, folks, we will wrap it up here today. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your great questions. And look for us to have more and more Avid Live Sound webinars going forward. There's no shortage of topics to talk about. That is for certain. So until next time, we will see you guys. We'll see you guys out doing shows. So that's going to how we're going to be working going forward. We'll see you guys later. Thanks again for tuning in. Bye-bye.